Hello class and welcome to week 2 of Athletic Finance, MCAA 561. I would like to take some time to look at the topic we're studying this week, challenges facing sports in America, but specifically high school sports. The textbook covers college and professional sports pretty thoroughly, but leaves out high school sports, which is a setting that most of us are in. What you will see is not an exhaustive list, but it's based on the things I've seen consistently in my experience over the last 10 years as an athletic director and coach. So let's get started. So what are the challenges that I'm referring to? Well, a short list would include issues like Title IX, public versus private schools, parents, what we call pay to play, deteriorating facilities at many of our school sites, this generation, which is referred to as Generation IY, and coach burnout. One of the aims of Title IX is to create a level playing field for all sports. This does not only include an equal opportunity for participation by athletes of both gender, but it also includes equity in spending, which is something you'll see in the articles in coming weeks. A last area to consider with regard to Title IX and a challenge is the school district responsibility to enforce the law and often face the consequences if they don't do so. One of those consequences could be making sure that the funding is equal in sports with a male and female equivalent. A second challenge that is faced by high school sports in America, at least in some areas of the country, is the public school versus private school development. And the areas that are of specific note are the resources that are available to private schools and in a lot of cases not available to public schools. That could include coach compensation or the ability to pay coaches much higher than their public school counterparts. Also the facilities arms race, which occurs at many of the private schools here in South Orange County, but across Southern California to attract the best athletes. And then lastly, the teacher versus professional coach argument, which basically is concerning how public school teachers have a lot more requirements on them in terms of their preparation and their professional growth because of the state laws that are enacted with regard to education. And often coaches at the private school level don't have those same requirements. Many of them are professional coaches or coach just a sport and are paid to do just that job. So those are some important issues I think that are facing high school sports in some parts of the country. Another challenge faced across America is the topic of parent issues. I'm going to let Butch Jones talk about the two types of parents that he comes across in the recruiting process to explain this point.
You've talked about the parent part of it. How much different is that now? And what's it like to deal with parents now as opposed to 10 years ago? What's different about what they're concerned about and what they're sort of interested in, concerned about, nervous about?
Well, I think I'm able to really understand that part of it. Having 3 boys of my own and now having a freshman on the football team, I think that's helped me as a coach. It's helped me see things through the eyes of a parent. I think that's been very beneficial. But, it is different, and it's part of Generation IY. And I'm in the process right now of working through compliance as we want to be able to some shape or form is provide the parents of our new signees the book Generation IY by Tim Elmore. And it's helped me as a parent. It's helped me understand kids of this society, but it's also challenged me as a parent. As we always say, and I always evaluate myself as a parent, and my wife Barb does the same thing. There's 2 types of parents. One, the parent who's preparing the kid for the path, and the parent who's preparing the path for the kid. And it's good to suffer adversity. It's good to fail. That's how they learn. That's how you become better. And it's helped me as a parent. I think I'm able to relate to our parents a little bit more and also relate to our players. And I think we're better for that. But our parents have been very good here. Our parents have been very understanding. I know they all want to have success. We get that. They all want their kids to play. We get that. But it's a process in life, and you have to earn that every day. But, I've been very proud of all of our players on our football team. I think they have a work capacity. They come to work every day, and our parents have been great as well.
I'll shut the video off.
So he mentioned the two types of parents are those that prepare the kid for the path and those that prepare the path for the kid. And that's an important thing that we must face these days as we look to improve the overall dynamics within our programs, especially with regard to relationships with our parents. Some other areas within the topic of parent issues are booster groups, which can be both positive and negative, and we'll look at closely in weeks 3 and 4. Sports specialization and clubs. Included in this are the financial implications of club sports and how that has led many to specialize, I think, much too early in the process of development for our athletes, or especially our younger athletes. The financial implications are as easy as coaches who are paid primarily to improve your child's athletic skills, and sometimes that financial incentive doesn't create the most honest environment for parents. They often get a false sense of reality on what their child can and cannot do, and often that leads to overtraining and athlete burnout. Sometimes, or a lot of times, parents don't understand or don't know who to listen to, so they do too much. So these are some things that we have to face today with regard to parent issues. Pay to play is another important challenge that our high schools face across America. The first question to ask is it even legal? I know in California in the late 1980s, there was a law passed to prevent pay to play, but over time, many school districts disregarded that law, and it wasn't until recently till the ACLU brought another suit to the forefront of our communities that this law was, or is now, closely followed. And the short of it is that there is no language remaining that can use fees, and all our programs must be donation based. Another question to ask is it right? Should we prevent certain populations of students from participating based on their financial background? You have schools in low-income neighborhoods who may not be able to raise the funds or come up with the funds to participate in a sport. You may also have low-income populations within a school who might be prevented the opportunity. And often many are embarrassed to admit that they don't have the money to play, so they just don't go out for the teams in the first place. And I know that's something that we experience at my high school. What the data shows is that there has been a 50% decrease in youth sports participation in the last 15 years. And in 2011, 61% of U.S. high schools charged some form of a participation fee. And there's an article I attached here is under the resource that you can look at for further information on this. Another challenge that high schools face across America are deteriorating facilities. In some school districts, it is much harder than others to come up with the necessary funds to upgrade and maintain facilities. So the question is how some will do that. I know in our school district, we are facing that challenge currently, especially with regard to the field surfaces, the artificial turf that our 6 high schools have, and how the money will be raised to maintain and to upgrade those surfaces which are quickly deteriorating. Grass maintenance is another issue on our school campuses, especially with the budget cuts here in California. We've faced over the last 5 years many cuts in the maintenance and grounds staff, and they are slowly coming back. However, that has impacted the maintenance of grass surfaces and how we can provide a safe playing surface for our athletes. Another area to consider with regard to challenges in high schools, which isn't directly related to finances, but I think is something important to consider, and that is how we reach this generation, which Butch Jones referred to as Generation IY, and has been written about by the author Tim Elmore of the book Generation IY, which I included the links below. But in an article from Leadership Now, they pointed out 5 main areas on reaching this generation, or lessons we can learn. And first is this generation definitely needs mentoring, and we as coaches and leaders in our schools must find ways to mentor our student athletes. Another point is everything isn't an option, because often this generation has been told that. We've all experienced the idea that everyone gets a trophy in our little leagues and in our youth sports teams. But again, that's another area that we need to work on with regard to this generation. They have differing learning styles. We know that they are referred to as the connected generation. They have their iPhones and gadgets, and are constantly look at their Twitter and other social media, and with that connection, they are also lacking in social skills in terms of building characteristics and areas within themselves that can help them succeed as adults. So I think this is an important area to consider as well as we look at challenges facing our high schools. Lastly, I wanted to mention an area that I believe is a challenge facing our high school leaders, especially athletic directors and principals. As you look at some of these challenges and the impact, there is a higher tendency for coach burnout. Here are some trends. First off, I've seen in my experience that coaches quit at a younger age or much earlier in their careers than they have in the past. This can be due to a number of reasons: family pressures, infringement on personal time, too much responsibility, or a quick fix mentality that pervades our society today. And some specific dimensions that this affects our coaches and would be: one, an emotional exhaustion, where we feel we've given all we have and are just often exhausted in our dealings and our relationships with both parents and athletes. Depersonalization is another dimension. We can sometimes become cynical or have negative feelings towards parents and athletes. And then the third dimension to consider is a reduced performance accomplishment, which basically is a dissatisfaction with our accomplishments. We evaluate ourselves negatively, or a constant criticism of self, players, or the team. And so these are some additional areas to consider as we look at challenges in high schools today. Before I close, I'd like to share some biblical guidance on challenges and trials that we face in both our personal and professional lives. First, in James, he mentions to count it all joy, my brothers and sisters, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. Paul states in 1 Corinthians 4:8-9, we are afflicted in every way, but not crushed, perplexed, but not driven to despair, persecuted, but not forsaken, struck down, but not destroyed. And finally, in Philippians, a popular verse which states, I can do all things through him who strengthens me. I think this is important because when we deal with people and relationships on a regular basis, we can feel like we're under attack, and it's always great to have the resource and in an environment like this in Concordia where we can encourage one another in our faith. I wanted to take the time to do so. So give me your thoughts. Was there an issue that struck a chord with you, or was there an issue that you faced that is worth sharing? You can email me any of your comments at my email below at armando.gonzalez@cui.edu. Have a great week.